I'm Brad Fain, and this is another edition of Living a Good Life here in Prescott Valley, Arizona. Today I'm joined with Frank Almendarez, who is the VP of Operations at YRMC Dignity. And Frank is, as I understand it, you're primarily responsible, you are responsible for the East Campus,
Yes.
but you're responsible for everything from an operations East and West campuses.
That's correct.
But you spend a lot of time here in Prescott Valley making sure we have great health care.
Yes, I'm the only administrator right now over here on the East Campus.
Okay. Great. Well, why don't you just, we're going to talk today about the design of a community, what goes into making communities great for people. And everybody has their own definition of what it is to live a good life. And, when we're younger, it's about activity. It's about what can I do for fun? Are there restaurants? Are there dancing? All these great activities, sports. And as we get older, healthcare becomes more prevalent, that we need good healthcare, and we realize that, well, healthcare is really important in the design of a community. So we're going to touch a little bit on that as we get into the conversation today. But just for our listeners, why don't you give them a little background about you so they know who I'm talking to today. I know you a little bit, but they might not.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I started my career about 40 years ago. I got into nursing. And from nursing, I was an ER director and kind of moved up where I became a CNO and a chief operating officer. And then, I'm here in Prescott Valley. I've worked in over 3 states, just moving and gaining the experience to where I'm at now. And, you mentioned about when someone comes to a community, what is it that they're looking for? When I came to this community, first, it was hot as heck in Phoenix. I think it was like 112 degrees that day.
welcome to Arizona.
And we haven't spent that much time in Arizona. I think we probably did a week in Phoenix at some timeshare that we had. But as I was driving on out here and I got on 169, I was thinking, wow, what am I doing out here? There's like nothing out here. But as soon as I got through into the community, I saw Prescott Valley, and I saw the Sam's Club during that time, and then saw Lowe's and then Home Depot. And I'm on the phone with my wife and I'm saying, hey, this is a great place. It looks like they have a lot of businesses that we're familiar with. And so then I ended up doing the interview, and I interviewed with a team that was very engaged with the communities, with wanting to do good for the hospital. Now, mind you, at that time, we were just a small community based hospital. And so when I left, I recognized that, this would probably be a good place that my family and I would want to be in. And for us, what we looked at, I had a young son. So we looked at schools. Right. I got online. I looked at both Humboldt and Prescott, and they were good schools. They had some good scores. They had a lot of AP classes available for young people. And then I looked at crime. At the time, there was a different chief here, and I did go to the police station, and I did want to speak with the chief. I think I spoke with a sergeant and asked him about the crime that was going on in this community, and it was good. And then, the healthcare, I had already read up on Yavapai Regional Medical Center and some of the services that they were providing. They had an open heart program, orthopedics, ENT, GI. So I went back and talked to my family, and they were like, you know what, let's go ahead and let's make the move. And I was moving from McMinnville, Oregon to here. Okay. So I've been here since 2014, so 8 years. Haven't regretted it. We love this community, and we're active in the community. And my son graduated from Prescott High School. He's going to Yavapai College.
Awesome.
Getting into nursing.
Oh, great.
So
the family business, healthcare, that's good.
So right now, I think that's what's, I anticipate on retiring here.
Oh, great.
Yeah, my wife really loves it. She feels safe in this community, so we're here to stay.
Nice. Yeah. Well, let's give people a little background about our relationship from Fain Signatures Group and YRMC. Yes. And so it's been a long relationship, and we were just talking, it's
like
been
2006,
so like 16 years ago, 17 years ago. We saw the need as for healthcare in Prescott Valley because Prescott Valley was a growing community. It was starting to build. We had people living here. We were starting to get a little retail base. We were starting to build a job base here in Prescott Valley. Things were going, but we were missing healthcare in Prescott Valley. We had to, as a community, we had to go to Prescott. If we had an emergency, and if you lived on the east side of Prescott Valley, you had to go all the way to Prescott. And as you know, time is important when you're in an emergency situation. And then if you just needed healthcare, you either had to go to Prescott or to Phoenix. And so around 2006, YRMC saw the need as well. We got together and our family and company and YRMC found a spot for you in downtown, and we're trying to build a downtown and really have a nice anchor in downtown. And the hospital's a wonderful anchor. And what I really like about that start is the people at the time saw the need in 2006 for healthcare, and they had the wisdom to plan for the future. And a lot of people may not realize it, but the hospital you see today is a portion of what's designed. And it's got a lot of room to grow up. And I think the original design is twice as big as the hospital in Prescott, approximately.
Yeah, I think that the way that they designed it, and the structure to go up is it actually can be a 250 bed hospital.
Yeah.
Because
and
at the time,
what is it at today?
Right now we're 72.
70 to go to
250.
50. And what's Prescott, just so people have context?
So Prescott's 146.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is that opportunity. And I think I wasn't here during that time, but in talking to those that were, they anticipated that Prescott Valley was going to be the community where it was going to grow. And young people, young families were going to come out here. So hence the reason why you have OB services here on the East Campus. And then we have the pediatric unit here at the East Campus as well.
So that started our relationship with YRMC and now Dignity.
Yes.
We'll get to the Dignity story a little bit. So we saw a need for healthcare. Why don't you describe, like, from your purview as a healthcare provider and now an administrator, because you've been through it all. I mean, I love your story. You started at the ground floor, you worked your way through it all, saw ER. I have friends that are ER doctors, and I really think that's a different view of healthcare that when you talk to them, it's just like a MASH unit. I mean, they see everything. And so I'm really excited that you had that experience. And now you're an administrator and you get to overlook the whole thing. Tell us your view of why healthcare is important to a community and the design of it to making it a great place for people to live so they can live a good life.
Yeah, when you're moving into a community, especially a rural community as we have, for us, and this is my understanding, is that Prescott Valley are one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Arizona. And also we're getting older individuals moving to this area, whether it's California, Michigan, or wherever.
Yep.
So those individuals are moving here, and some of them have needs, health needs that we have to provide to them. And for us, we recognize that, we brought in the heart program over in Prescott. Talking to those who were not here, if someone was to have a heart attack, God forbid, we had helicopter services that they had to go by ground to Phoenix, which is an hour plus. And I'm sure during that time it was challenging to try to get people to open heart program down the valley. So when a decision was made to bring that program here, and it's the James family, a lot of people recognized the good that came out of that because more people were saved. And it was a service because of the age of the people in our community and what was affecting them. So they addressed that service to them. We have OB services. Now, there was a time when people weren't having as many babies. Right now, we're over 1,000 a year, okay? Wow. But I heard prior to 2008, they were up like 1,200, 1,300 babies. So we lost some during 2008, but we're starting to grow and bringing more people up on in here. Pediatric services, well, we still have high schools. We still have a lot of elementaries. People aren't having that many babies, but we understand that it's a vital need. Now, mind you, we don't admit a whole lot of kids to our hospital. And if we do, they have very mild ailments that they may need to stay a day or 3. If they're critical, we send them down to Phoenix Children's so they get taken care of.
Yeah.
So for healthcare, you got to get a pulse of the community. And with us, with Dignity Health, we affiliated with them. And the reason why is we understood that even though we were doing well and we were bringing in services, maybe onesie or twosie a year, we understood that by affiliating with Dignity Health, they're a $26 billion organization, that the resources that they could provide to us, that we could provide to the community, are insurmountable. And the timeline that we can do it is faster than if we were just a small YRMC community hospital. So some of those services that we are bringing in, now mind you, the heart program brought in, we could do, and I'll give you just the acronyms: EP, TAVRs, Watchmen's. These are all surgical and technical ways that we manipulate the heart to get people to have a regular heart rate. We have that in place now, okay? But by being with Dignity Health now, if we have a cardiologist and let's say someone moves away, we can reach out to them and they can provide that support of a cardiologist from down the valley. If we have a urologist that we're in a need for, they could send somebody up to assist us in that until we hire our own. We plan on we already brought Barrows Neurological Institute. They're world renowned. They're now in our new outpatient services building. We plan on bringing Muhammad Ali Parkinson's.
So the merger with Dignity, or the affiliation with Dignity, is really giving you a multiple of expanding your services to our community. Yes. That relationship overnight, essentially, because I know your goal is to bring some of it here and have it local, but in the meantime, we still have access to it.
Exactly.
And so when we have that need, we now, I know being raised here and even over the last 20 years being up here, a lot of people, one of their big complaints is I have to go to Phoenix for all these services. And so you're starting to close that gap a little bit.
As an administrator, that's probably one of the biggest concerns for people in our community, because for the elderly, if their spouse is having to go down and be sent down to the valley, they either don't have the funds to go down there to rent a hotel, or someone needs to take care of their dog and they don't have that expense to house the dog in a kennel, or they can't drive. And so people who have been together for 20 plus years now they're being separated during a time that's very stressful. And could be dramatic for them in their life expectancy, and we've separated them now. So we're trying to do what we can to try to keep those individuals and provide those services to keep them here in town.
Well, you just don't feel well. And you know, when you don't feel well, I'm the same way. I don't want to be in a car driving an hour and a half, and you think about just being sick, number one. But then if you add oncology on top of that, and you're getting treatment for cancer, I can't imagine that's a fun drive when you're going through all of that. So to be able to be close to home and be in what's familiar to you. I mean, I think there's a lot of studies that say, you know, if you're in your environment and that's positive for you, that helps you heal better than being, you know, driving down to a foreign city. Not that it's foreign, but you're staying in a hotel or you're staying in an apartment that's not yours. And that affects your recovery, I gotta imagine.
It does. I mean, family plays an important part in the recovery of someone's health. I think long time ago, we try to keep people out, because I just need to take care of you. But we understood, just like a good meal in the hospital, there's that comfort food about it. having your family with you. It's important in reducing the number of days that you're in the hospital.
Yeah. So let's talk about so we've got this affiliation with Dignity, which is amplifying and magnifying the services that you can now provide and accelerating locating them here in our community, which is exciting. But the hospital's a business. And you and I were talking one time, and I can't remember the stat you gave me, but everybody thinks of a hospital as doctors. And doctors make lots of money, and they're the kind of the upper tier of the community. But you said that's like the smallest, I'm not sure if it was the smallest percentage of employees you have, but give me a breakdown of what is in a hospital from a staffing perspective. Because you got docs, but there's a whole community behind the docs that make it happen.
So the doctors are a small percentage of our workforce. I mean, we have independent docs that they're privately and they do their business. But then we have employed docs, so they're a small percentage. Our largest workforce is the nursing division.
Okay.
And then from the nursing division, you have the laboratory services, you have diagnostic imaging, respiratory, nutrition services who make the food, CNAs who assist and support the nurses. You got rehab services, physical therapists, occupational therapists, our wellness center, EVS, housekeeping. With that COVID that came in, those individuals, their stature was raised. Because if you had a patient that had a COVID or any type of infectious disease, you want a good person to go on in there that knows what they're doing, that's cleaning that room, so that they could put in a next person. And if they didn't do that well, then the next person that gets dropped in that room could potentially get the disease from the previous individuals. So it's a gamut of from doctors all to security. I mean, it is a business.
Yeah.
And the challenges with it is, when we hit COVID, as I had mentioned in another conversation, COVID raised the awareness of the importance of having your own staff. When we were hitting, as an example, I'll just throw out a number, but let's say if you're hitting the hospital at 100 and you're staffing it to that. Your doctors, your nurses, your respiratory therapists, your EVS cleaning, nutrition services, all that encapsulate in working 100 patients. But now you're dealing with 250 patients. It was just unbelievable that people did step up during that time. We had people who would work 7 days a week, work extra shifts just because they want to help their colleagues. We work closely together. That was a challenge because for healthcare workers, they can only do that for so long before you start worrying about them burning out.
Yeah.
So we had to look elsewhere for workforce. Well, they're not here. Yeah. So what happens is that we started to look at, contract agencies. Well, the whole United States, the whole world was looking at contract agencies by that time. So if I'm a contract agency and I have 20 nurses, ICU nurses, med surg, OR nurses, ICU, now I'm having healthcare organizations bidding for my nurses.
Yes.
So nurses that we would normally pay $85 as a contract, and the contract agency would keep 20% of that, okay? Now we're seeing all the way up to $140, $160 an hour contract agency. So as a hospital, we're running a business, but I need the nurses to take care of you and your family.
Yeah.
I'm held hostage. I need that nurse. I'm going to pay the $160.
So you have a social standard that you as a community hospital need to meet for the community of health, and you have a business you're running, and they're colliding and not working anymore. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
And so what happens is that it's nurses. You're paying that same amount for physicians. it went down to lab techs, it went down to respiratory therapists. So everybody's in contract labor, it was going up. Mm-hmm. And so here we are running a business. And we can't just say, oh, we're no longer going to take care of open hearts today.
Yeah.
That's not something that we do.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be wrong for us to do that. So we, we're competing with everyone else and just raise everyone else's salaries.
So if we look at the hospital as a business,
mm-hmm.
and we've got to maybe focus on that for a moment, what's your biggest challenge today in the business of a hospital in our community?
I think our biggest challenge right now is just the staffing, but everyone's dealing with that everywhere.
Finding bodies.
And I think the opportunity that we have here is we have a nursing school at Yavapai College. Mm-hmm. NAU also puts nurses off 4-year degrees as well. So for us, it's getting the younger people. And we used to, at one time, do a career day. And I remember I would have several of my staff members when we go at Humboldt. Now, mm-hmm. we did it pre-COVID, okay? But I felt that was important for us to, hey, this is what you do in radiology. This is what you do in lab. This is what you do as a nurse. Mm-hmm. Getting those kids to look at those degrees in hopes that maybe someday they're going to say, hey, I remember you guys doing it. And it did happen with an X-ray tech. There was a young man that was over here at Humboldt who was an 8th grader that saw that and become an X-ray tech.
Wow.
So
what a great story.
There are those opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, mind you had like 80 students, and I just heard from one of them. But I think we got to start hitting that. Mm-hmm. And getting those kids. I used to have JTED. Mm-hmm. We used to have, I don't know if we still have it, but I thought that was great because even building, we're doing a lot of construction now. We just built a 100,000 square foot outpatient services building. We brought in a 12-bed CVICU, state of the art in Prescott. We just upgraded our energy center now to accommodate those larger structures. We had a hard time finding welders.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to get welders out of the community to help us with welding the beams.
Yeah, that brings up a whole nother conversation about the JTED program and really reaching out to our kids in school at a young enough age to say there's 2 tracks here and they're both great tracks. And one is you might go up and go off to a 4-year degree and get that. And the other one is the trades. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time studying the trades, but there's a lot of trades that they're great careers. Mm-hmm. We need them. They're the heart and soul of a community. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't realize it until you need it, like the welder. Yeah. Like all of a sudden you're like, I never thought about welders until now I need one. Mm-hmm. And it's helping build a healthcare facility for our community. But that's a really big conversation about we really do need to reach out into our schools and educate our kids on it's okay to take either path.
Yes.
And we're cut differently. Mm-hmm. Some people can go do a 4-year degree and they love it, and other people it's not for them. They just need to get working and do kind of go down the trades path and really get into nursing or get into welding or get into one of the trades.
Yeah.
Because they are very important in our community.
They are, and again, as we're building stuff, supply management is an issue. The manpower for these large contracting companies is a big issue. But our biggest challenge is just trying to find staff. And then associated with that, there's a housing component.
Okay.
Even with our contract laborers, and we're paying big dollars for them. Mm-hmm. They'll come out here, they signed on. I've had maybe 3-4 individuals that they're paying big dollars, more than I'm paying the staff. And they're in a hotel room for 2 weeks waiting to find something reasonable, and they can't. So they came to us and said, hey, we got to leave. I could go to Phoenix and find a place to live than what I'm paying at the hotel room.
This is a common theme that I hear is you're running a business. It's providing a great service to our community healthcare, but as an employer, you're trying to grow your business. You just said you're building a new facility. You just completed it in Prescott. I know you have plans for others. So Dignity is growing and trying to grow the business, which is creating more jobs for our community. And most people would say, well, that's great. We need more jobs. They're good paying jobs. They're all across the spectrum of wages. But where do they live?
Yeah.
And so there's this like conflict I see in the community, because there's this side of the community that says, we support job growth. We support, like, I want nurses. Like, if I get sick, I want to make sure there's nurses there. I want to make sure there's docs and everything that goes behind them. But then with that statement, I also have to say, I'm for new houses being brought on the market, because where are these people going to live? Right? And how are we going to make it affordable for them to live here?
Well,
Prescott, so you're saying something that I hear over and over in other industries, but I think it's real.
Well, I had read something regarding Sedona. So the city of Sedona, the hotelers and the restaurateurs, and some of our big, large companies, their staff cannot find housing in Sedona. So they're going into Verde Valley, they're going into Cottonwood, and they're buying up these homes or these apartments. So then what happens is that the workforce that is needed in Cottonwood and Verde Valley, their staff don't have the ability to get housing. And I know that it's recognized. I believe, the PV, our town, have put in a housing workforce, and we have a member that's part of that discussions. Prescott I heard in their council that they're putting a housing strategic force together. I think they understand that. But, when you're paying someone, even $20 is a somewhat a decent wage. That's $40,000 a year. But $40,000 a year isn't going to be able to buy you a $400,000 house.
Well, it's no different than what you were saying before with your nurses. You had a supply problem when COVID hit. And all of a sudden, your nursing went from whatever you pay nurses to you had to do the contract nurses at 80, and then all of a sudden the bidding wards took it up to 140. That's a supply chain issue, right? There weren't enough nurses. Well, same thing on housing. The housing is going up so fast because we have workers that we need, but we're not adding enough supply to offset it. And if we're just going to rely on our existing inventory, the highest bidder will win, right? And unfortunately, the highest bidder wants all the services that you offer, right? And that you can't get here. So it's a vicious circle we're in. And as a community, I think we can do a better job of addressing it. And I do think it's supply. We just need to put more of a wide spectrum of houses on the market. We need the entry-level houses. We need the family homes. We need the starter home where you just get married, or you're just moving out, or you just get your degree, first job, I can live here. And then your family, and then your empty nester house. And we can provide all that in this community. And that's part of what makes a good design of a community, is people can enter the market, have a wonderful career, and never have to leave the community, and they can go through all those stages of their life. And
no, I agree with that. And I think from our perspective, we are looking at what we can do. So mind you, we could raise everyone's wages. We could end up doing that.
It's going to cost me more, though, right? I got to be willing to pay more.
Others more for their healthcare services.
And insurance doesn't always just pay for all that, right? So it's not like it does cost me more. I pay more in insurance premiums, or I have to pay direct. If I don't have the proper insurance.
So you look at our payer mix. I mean, we're high Medicare. So, and the way Medicare plays, it's through they call it DRG. It's I forgot what the name of it actually stands for. But what happens is when you come in...
That's when you know you have too many acronyms. Just saying, when you don't know what the acronym means anymore, you have too many acronyms.
Designated regulatory group or something like that. But what happens if you have an appendectomy, though most people, that's an outpatient. That DRG that the government puts on it, they will pay, let's say, $1,000. So if I'm on Medicare, I go in, I get that procedure done, that's $1,000 that Medicare pays, okay? But with all the services, the surgeon, the outpatient follow-ups, the the med-surg bed, that's $8,000. So from $1,000 on Medicare, who's going to pay the $7,000?
Yeah.
Now, we don't have, the patient will write things off, you know, but.
Well, that goes back to the business and your challenge of how do you keep your costs low?
Yeah.
You know, which goes back to the community, right? It's all there because if it costs more to live in the community, you have to raise your fees. You get part of it through insurance, but then there's this gap. Maybe I pay a part of it as a patient, but then there's a write-off. Well, that hurts the business. And then we're looking at, are we going to have all our services, or are you going to add a new service? And it puts pressure on all that.
Yeah, it does. And so, you know, raising the salary is not the cure-all for us. The other things in regards to the housing, so, you know, we're working with some developers and contractors of, is there a way that we can purchase maybe 12, 16 tract condos or apartments that we can have, and we get charged, the hospital will get charged, and then we end up, you know, it'll be less for our employees to live in there so that they could provide the services to the community. So we're looking at that. We're looking at maybe a housing stipend. You know, if you're coming on in, then I'll give you a stipend for housing to offset whatever the cost is.
But that adds to your cost. I mean,
in the end, it
helps
adds
the
cost
employee,
to the hospital.
Right? It helps, and that's where I think, as a community, there's a better way to do this, because we can do that, which is you have to add a cost, and then you got to pass that on somewhere. Yeah. The community could just generate a tax, but again, you're taxing one group to provide for another. I think there's better solutions than that out there. I think we can get together and solve this if we solve it as a community.
Yes.
It takes everybody.
Yeah, it does take everybody. And, you know, I had thought when, with the workforce for PV here on housing, you know, I was thinking, wow, God, maybe everyone's getting taxed, you know, property taxes. Well, that doesn't happen here. You know, you think, okay, the town can help out the developer. We're going to reduce your tax. So then you can do that savings to whoever rents your apartments. Well, there is no tax here in PV. I mean, there are probably taxes.
No property tax.
No property taxes.
They got their other taxes.
Yeah, they got the sales taxes. I got that.
They got their fees, and they got other ways to.
Yeah, but
get their
you know,
money.
I was thinking, well, maybe the community can help us in regards to that. But I don't know. It's just a challenge. You know, just the housing, the staffing situation, and then just the payer mix. You know, I mean. There's not a whole lot more people working because look at all the open jobs you have.
Do you see that changing? Like, I know, like COVID, everything stopped, and then there was the crisis that we got through, and we're kind of on the back end, I hope, of that. But there's still this supply shortage of workforce. As an administrator looking at the top, do you see that easing at all, or do you still see, when you look into your crystal ball, like next year and 5 years down the road, do you see us getting back to a growing workforce? Like nationally almost, and then that will impact us locally.
Not unless, as a whole, I mean, yeah, you could talk about the community, but you could look at the state government or the federal government. I think that if we want to see a good workforce, we got to invest in our young people in some form or fashion. Yeah, I know there's loans out there, there's grants. I went through to get my degree through a grant. I got scholarships, but I think we need to do more. And it starts at the elementary area. It starts with the teachers and giving them good wages. You know, I mean, they're taking care of our kids and they're putting ideas in them. And I think we got to start from that level, because people like my age now, I mean, even in the 90s, I heard come 2020, 2030, there's going to be a massive RN shortage. Sure enough, there's a massive RN shortage. I got nurses that are, and staff just in general.
So is that driven by the baby boomer wave that we've all been talking about? We're well into it, and it's got a few more years to go. Is that what's causing it? Because behind the baby boomers, there was a significant drop in our population as a country. And so there's fewer people with this big wave. Is that part of it?
So yeah, so you're having the people who were born in the 60s, that are now getting to the age where their ailments, we're starting to see more of them, and that was the big population. And then you're seeing a healthcare force that we're not putting enough in there to take care of that need.
Yep. Okay.
So I foresee this is going to continue for some time. I don't see no. I'll be retired by the time, and that's unfortunate because I've always, with other leaders in the organizations and those that I oversee, when I always tell them when you're hiring someone who eventually is going to take care of you. So when I was a nurse manager and a chief nursing officer, I was hiring leaders who were going to hire staff that are eventually going to end up taking care of me.
That's a different perspective.
So we need to hire qualified people with the right mindset and enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
And so, we just need to get more of the young people involved into the healthcare services. So.
Well, let's pivot for kind of maybe wrap this up and look at the future a little bit. So we got a great healthcare provider here in Prescott Valley and in Prescott, servicing the whole Quad City area. Dignity's investing. See, we see the new building in Prescott. I think there's more planned in Prescott Valley. What can you tell us about what's on the horizon for healthcare through the eyes of Dignity for our community? What's something that's exciting out there? Where are we going?
I think for Dignity Health, I mean, YRMC was a real gem to them. I mean, they had no presence up here in Northern Northern Arizona. You may want to strike that one. But here in Northern Arizona, they now have a footprint. And the services were already available to them. So I think with us being a hub here in Northern Arizona, it will allow them to start reaching out to other smaller communities and providing clinics and services to them. Okay. I mean, we're treating people in Ash Fork, we're treating people in Seligman. I mean, that is a long drive.
I don't think people realize that the unique dynamics that businesses, healthcare being one of them, in Northern Arizona have to deal with. CAFMA's the same thing with our fire. People don't realize when you service Yavapai County, it's huge.
It's huge.
And there's a lot of little rural communities that aren't big enough to have these services in their community. And when you think about going from Ash Fork to Crown King, right? Skull Valley, Baghdad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just Prescott Valley. It's there's a lot out there.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, why do people, I mean, if they're young and they don't have any health problems, then go live in a rural area. But if you're older, you got maybe heart problems or lung problems, why would you want to live so far away from healthcare services?
It's in their DNA.
I don't know. You don't have a horse fast enough to get you to the hospital, So so I think from Dignity Health, they're really excited about the opportunities what YRMC now as a healthcare organization can provide to this community and elsewhere. I mean, it opens up a lot of it just opens up a lot of opportunities for them.
Great.
And they've made their imprint now, So they have the Valley, now they have Northern Arizona.
And hopefully that translates to opportunities for our community.
Yeah.
Not only in healthcare services, but in careers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a package.
I mean, you think about it, if you're bringing doctors and nurses and x-ray technicians on up here, I mean, those are large salaries brought into a community where people are going to buy things and, partake in, the arts and, use the trails and fishing. I mean, there's a lot of money that can happen, but again, you got to have the housing because no one's going to live in tents, and you got to have the staff to meet those needs, I mean, it's I've never seen this when you go up to one of these fast foods and they closed. It's like the sign said, closed today, no staffing available.
Yes, it's amazing.
That's
It's
unheard
everywhere.
of.
I know.
So yeah.
Well, Frank, I appreciate you coming in and talking, sharing your
Thank
story.
you for
and
having me.
We're happy and excited to have Dignity Healthcare in our community, and you guys are an essential ingredient in making a community a great place to live and a part of living a good life. Because without health,
Yes.
it's really hard to live a good life. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. And we'll see you next time on Living a Good Life.